Does it feel like every part of your life is divided? Every scenario, every environment, your church, your school, your work, your friends, left, right, conservative, liberal, religious, secular. It seems you always have to take a side. This is a conversation between a progressive Christian and a conservative atheist who happen to be great friends. Welcome to Living on Common Ground.
Do you think if we met today, we would still be friends?
I don't know, but we're friends now.
A mob is no less a mob because they're with you.
Man, so what? We won a few games. And y'all fools think that's something? Man, that ain't nothing, y'all. And you know what else? We ain't nothing either. Yeah, we came together in camp. Cool. But then we're right back here and the world tells us that they don't want us to be together. We fall apart like we ain't a damn bit of nothing, man.
We can't simplify the world as much as we would like to and reduce it to a handful of principles. It's a complicated world, and the difficult path forward for us is to study the world, learn as much as we can about it, appreciate the complexity and the detail in the world, and argue about the best way forward for us. And I think the best way forward for us is to maintain some level of military strength and be prepared to stand up for American principles and values when they are under attack by evil forces elsewhere in the world.
Mr. Kaplan, do you have a question?
It seems like there's a long list of evils that you're unlikely to want to do anything about. Do you want to invade Saudi Arabia so they stop oppressing their women? Do you want to tell China that they, to threaten war against China unless they switch to democracy? There are many U.S. allies that commit the very crimes they're talking about, but as long as they're our buddies, we do very little about it. And it seems like most people have no problem with that.
I don't think you can say just because there's a lot of problems in the world that we're going to intervene everywhere. In fact, I'm very sympathetic to the notion that we ought to have an aversion to intervention. Absolutely. And I'm saying that there are a small number of situations, like when you're battling an unthinking ideology of racial superiority, as prevailed in Nazi Germany and in Japan, or maybe now when you're battling a religious intolerance that calls for the murder in the name of God, as though God is ordering these murders and issuing fatwas on people. Maybe that's a situation where people are willing to stand up and defend themselves, for the United States to lend some support to free people elsewhere in the world willing to stand up and fight. I think we need to have armed forces standing in reserve to lend that support where it's in our interest and in the interest of humankind to do so.
Mr. Kaplan, you want a last word?
And it seems like really all that you're saying is, even though we have a lot of evidence that our best thinking isn't very good, let's do it anyway and rely on it. I think we really need to take seriously the true complexity. It's so complex that even if people try their best, they're very bad at doing this. And saying we're going to go and attack a country and kill a lot of innocent people when we just have a guess that it might be better is not good enough.
All right. So I love the fact that you couldn't make it through the whole thing without speaking. All right. So
you're going to have to forgive me because I am halfway through.
You don't need my forgiveness.
My second listen to a 10-hour-long episode straight of Scott Horton on the Lex Friedman show. And I'm just going to say, since we're going to talk about this, I will defer to that. I would recommend anybody who is listening to this, go listen to that episode. It's the latest one that the Lex Friedman show has just released. Scott Horton is, for
Scott, is it like Horton Hears a Who? Or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And I probably 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, something like that, I sent you an episode, which was just a speech that he gave. And you said, he sounds crazy. And the thing is, he has a very unique speaking style, but part of that comes from the fact that, and he would never say this about himself, I don't think. I think he has an eidetic memory. I think he's a certifiable genius. And so what happens is he will start talking about a topic, and you will say things, you will, I always appreciate it, and it strokes my ego when you say that you like it that I can remember names and books and whatever.
Blows me away.
I am an infant. I don't really think that of myself anyway. I just think, well, that's probably just because I was just listening to something, yesterday or whatever. But
you don't have to confess that.
I always like it when you say that because it makes me feel good and it strokes my ego. Scott Horton, and this episode is just, it's a masterclass. It is 10 hours long. He sat with him for 10 hours straight. The guy barely uses notes, and he gives all of the receipts. It is none of this, we're fighting evil forces. Well, who are those evil forces?
Mm-hmm.
What's the group name? Give me a name. What are the names of the individuals in that group? What are the names of the individuals in our State Department who are making these decisions? And what have they, what positions have they been in 5 years ago and 10 years ago? Why are they still in the government? Why is that person? Why is James Baker still in the government? You know what I mean? Like in these different administrations. Scott Horton will give you all of those names, the dates, what they did, what they said. I mean, it is like reading an encyclopedia. So I'm halfway through my second listen of it. And I told you you've got a book in front of you that's making you upset.
Yeah, and I probably need to apologize to family and friends because I've been kind of a butt the last couple days because it's one of those things where. So I bought the book. Actually, I didn't buy the book. I think this was given to me by Joe and Linda.
Mm-hmm.
Gave this to me,
mm-hmm.
And anyway, but I'm also listening to it because I can listen to this book a lot quicker than I would read it.
Yeah,
but I'm also I'm reading, listening.
Yeah,
because I've got both, right? And so, but I can't stop.
Yeah.
I know it's bothering me and I can't stop. All right. So here's where we are.
Well, what I was going to say, just real quick.
Yeah.
I'm after I get done reading this book, I'm going to give it to you. It's Horton's latest book, called Provoked.
Okay.
And it is his treatise on why the new Cold War, is why the war in Ukraine,
mm-hmm.
while not justified, and he makes it very clear, this book's title is not rationalized. It is not justified.
Mm-hmm.
It is provoked. That is because all of the propaganda for the last 3 years has been this war was an unprovoked attack by Russia out of nowhere, right? And his entire treatise is, this has been going on since the fall of the Berlin Wall. We have been provoking exactly this.
Yeah.
And the other states have interests. They have rational interests.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, we ignore those interests at our own peril, And so, anyway, like I said, it is he runs antiwar.com. He is a libertarian legend. The podcast the episode of the podcast that I'm listening to, Lex lets him go from the beginning. Essentially, he starts kind of post-Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he starts. But really, it's the beginning of the war on terror, which goes all the way back. It really goes all the way back to Reagan. He talks about the Iran-Contra and the issues, and I hesitate to really get into it very much myself because, like I said, it's like trying to recite an encyclopedia.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fantastic.
So, all right, if you're listening and you're trying to figure out what in the world we're talking about,
yeah,
All right. So the topic that we started with is, well, okay. So first of all, last week we had an opportunity to talk with Mark Charles.
Yeah.
And then there was a lot of talk about the United States military during that time, the United States government, whether or not the United States government is even a legitimate government and has the right to govern the land that we're on. And so all of that. Well, it got me thinking all about the history of the United States military, the United States government. Then, of course, that with my mind continues to just spiral out into all sorts of different things that I can no longer control and sort of categorize. But in my mind, it always makes sense to me. Right. Like, and that's actually one of the problems I have sometimes when I'm speaking publicly is in my mind, I'll have made 6 jumps.
Yeah.
And I'll forget to connect those to where we are.
Yeah.
So anyway, that happened with me this week with the interview, which will come out before this one.
Yeah.
So, so again, if you haven't listened to that one and we reference it, because I'm assuming we're going to reference part of that today, go back and listen to that one first, and then you can come back and pick this one up, or just skip it and just listen to this one and just trust that what we're telling you is right.
It's your world.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want.
All right. So then the topic that from our topic sheet, and I connected it in my head, is our military operations around the world cause more harm than good for the U.S. And that was a Lucas statement. And then that got me thinking about the CIA project called Ajax in 1953. Are you familiar with that one?
I'm sure I've heard of it, but I can't remember
so
the
basically
specifics.
it was just this deal where there was a Middle East, and I'm giving the brief here, Middle Eastern country that had a democratic government.
Yeah.
And but it didn't want to play nice with the United States.
Yep.
And so what we did is we sent CIA agents in to create disruption for the government, and then we reinstated their dictator, their king.
Yeah, basically this is the mandate of the CIA.
Yeah. And so and it was very successful, and they overthrew the elected officials, and they reinstated the king, and the king agreed to play nice and allow us their natural resource, which is oil.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So that then got me thinking about, well, I'm also then reading this book. And the funny thing was, I was thinking about all that before I started reading this book. I just started reading this book 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And it's disturbing. It's talking about the collapse of globalization.
Yeah.
All right. So the collapse of globalization got me then thinking about this idea of whether or not it's actually good for the U.S. to withdraw its military operations around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Then that audio clip that's been sitting on my desktop for about a month.
Yeah.
Because when I first received this list from you. And I got to go back and look up you asked me who the speakers were, and I don't remember. I have to go back and look it back up. But the first gentleman that spoke, he says, well, you can't simplify the world. I agree with that statement. I agree with his opening statement, but then he loses me quickly.
Yeah, because everything he says after that is an exact contradiction to that first statement.
Yeah.
Is that why?
Yeah, because he then tries to simplify everything.
Yeah.
And what he's doing, in
you
my
mean like
mind,
George H.W. Bush saying that we now have our opportunity for the New World Order.
The New World Order.
And Krauthammer talking about it is the unipolar moment. When the Cold War ends, the Soviet Union collapses, it is now time for the U.S. to rule everything.
Well, and that's what happened. So, okay, in this book, well, let me finish the thought.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm all over the place, and I know that, and I'm going to trust that you're going to help me put this in order.
Yeah, best of luck.
But I agree with that. I agree with that, but I don't agree with the reasons that he suggests. I also, like when you start using things like, and you couldn't help yourself, and that's one of the things I love about you, is that when he says evil's in the world, right? Like, okay, so what he has talking points, but it's not actually true.
Yeah.
Right? Now, granted, what they may be doing, we would consider evil, right? Like, but we're not doing it because they're evil.
That's right.
We already have our reasons.
That's right.
And then we prop it up with morality. And so, like, we're not interested actually in freeing people. We're not actually interested in making the world a more democratic place. We're actually interested in undergirding globalization, which is what we started right after the end of World War II, when we were in a position we were the only nation that wasn't completely bankrupt by World War II of the quote unquote superpowers, right? And so the dollar all of a sudden becomes like what all other finances are measured against. We begin to establish like consistent oil prices across the globe, where before it was kind of like, well, here it's so much and here it's so much and here, right? Because the world begins to run on oil even more than it was prior to that. Yeah. And so what we're actually doing, the purpose of our Navy is not to ensure the peace around the world, except insofar as peaceful trade.
Sure.
Right? So when you first gave me the statement about the government, let's see, our military operations around the world cause more harm than good for the U.S. Yes and no. I think, and I know that you're trying to make a statement that's going to create controversy, and it created this one. Kudos, because it created controversy within myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of me is like, yes, we, for example, we end up fighting people that are using weapons we provided them just a generation ago, right, or even less. We provide everything that you need in order to overthrow your government. And then once you overthrow your government, but then all of a sudden you turn on us. Now we've got to come back in and fight you again because we need to replace your government. And what weapons are you using? You're using the weapons. It's like in Iron Man when Tony Stark is laying there and the rocket that doesn't go off is Stark Industries.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. So I think that's legitimately true. That causes more problems for us. The other thing, though, is if we withdraw, if we're honest about why we're here, wherever here is, if we're honest about it, then I think we can start having a better conversation. Because if it's just simply the evils of the world and we're actually arguing about stuff that's BS.
Well, that is very clear at this point for me.
I think so. So I think that we need to be honest about it and say, actually, what we're defending here is a global economy.
Okay.
That's my opinion. All right. And now, and this is what he makes this is the argument he makes in the book. And this is where I'm struggling. And I'm only halfway through the book, right? So I've been reading it for 2 days. I'm halfway through the book. It's like I don't even know how many pages it is. It's like 500 pages. All right. So, okay. He points out, he's making the argument that with the collapse of globalization, societies are going to crumble around the globe. The United States is kind of insulated. We'll still experience loss of jobs. We'll still experience rising costs, all of these kind of things. But because we can feed ourselves, we can manufacture a lot of. We outsource it now, but we're not in a situation like a country whose sole export is oil, and then they have to import even water or food, or like Japan, who became so overpopulated that they cannot feasibly feed themselves. That they're completely dependent upon importing food. All right, so that's the part so part of me is like, well, I'm an American. Okay, yeah, it sucks, whatever. but in the end, me and mine will be okay. But then there's another part of me, this part that is Christian, that feels like I need to be concerned about the other. And so it's like I feel like a lot of the things that we talk about, I feel like a lot of things we talk about in the Bible, all of a sudden, like it becomes real. The other thing too is just one last thing, and then I'm going to cut you loose because I can tell you're chomping at the bit to tear apart everything I've said.
No, I'm not going to do that.
So, oh shoot! Now, because of my little commentary, I forgot what I was going to say. He also says that none of the isms that we currently have are actually equipped to deal with deglobalization. Communism isn't going to do it. Socialism isn't going to do it. All of the isms. And then he goes back to like pre-globalization forms of government. And what would that look like? Mm-hmm. So maybe by becoming some kind of monarchy here in the United States, we'll actually be better equipped to deal with it.
I mean, it's interesting. Interesting thought.
All right. So there you go. That's my verbal vomit for 10 minutes.
Okay. So let me respond kind of in reverse order as much as I can. Number one, the Peter Zeihan, whatever his name is.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah. I don't either.
But apparently I've got a thing for Pete because
everyone's Peter.
Peter Enns, Peter Rollins,
or maybe that's
Peter Zeihan.
Maybe that's just a Gen X name.
Maybe
that comes out a lot. Anyway, I have seen him on Rogan. I haven't listened to huge amounts of his stuff, but I have seen some of his stuff. I don't know a ton about him.
Mm-hmm.
I did look him up, and he does work for a think tank in DC called the Center for Strategic and International Studies. I don't know a lot about that particular think tank. I bet they help set policy, though, and I'll bet they have positions that are encouraging our actual policymakers to maintain our global hegemony.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that. But here's the thing: we have rising costs. We will have rising costs because of the war machine. We already have that. Because think about it. We have a fiat monetary policy, right?
Oh, I read about that.
Okay. That means our government, and this is way oversimplified, but our government,
I need it to be oversimplified,
can borrow whatever they need to borrow in order to service the interest on what they've already borrowed. Okay. And as they borrow, they can inflate the cost of that borrowing out of what they've already borrowed. Okay. That's why we have inflation. Really, at the bottom of it is to
say it again.
Inflation helps borrowers.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts lenders. Okay. If I've borrowed money from you, okay, this kind of twists people's brains sometimes. It's hard to understand. If I've borrowed money from you at a rate of interest, and now the money that I'm paying back to you is worth less than the money I originally got from you, it helps me.
Yeah.
Well, the U.S. is the number one borrower. That's what treasury bonds are. That's what treasury bills are. That's what they are. And the Fed purchases those treasury bonds. So the Fed buys our own debt. Okay. If we didn't have that, there's no way we could maintain the wars that we have been maintaining for the last 70 years. Because if we didn't have that type of monetary system, what would they have to do? They'd have to come to you, Jeff, and they'd have to say, hey, I know your income tax rate is 15%. It's going to have to be 18% now. Well, why? Why has it got to be 18%? Why are you increasing my tax rate by 25% or, 15% or whatever, 3 to, 3 out of 15. Oh, well, that's because, see, there's a group in Western Syria that we're now supporting because they're fighting against the ally of somebody who is the enemy of one of our other allies, and they want to get a pipeline to whatever, right? So that obviously that's just not going to fly. If you have to, and California learned this long ago, okay? You don't raise taxes. You put bond measures on the ballot because and then you have the populace vote for the bond measures, and you say this is democratically decided on. We asked you guys, do you want to issue these bonds? Excuse me, and everyone says yes. Why? Why does everyone say yes? Well, if you're 18 years old, you get to vote, right? Most 43-year-olds don't have any idea what a bond measure is and how it actually works. And what does that mean? What does that mean that California is going to borrow $60 billion, and where's the money going to come to pay it back, right? Well, it's either going to come in two ways. We're going to raise your taxes. We're not going to do that. Or we will inflate the money so much so that we can continue to service the debt. Now, what does that also mean for you? It means that your eggs are going to be more costly, right? It means that everything is going to cost more. But you're not going to put those two things together. Number one, they're going to be like 20 years apart in terms of the effect that you feel. All of this. So my point is, the argument that if we start pulling back from our global hegemony and being the world's police, being the empire, is going to cause, economic problems for us, I just think that's not a sure thing, right? I don't think that we have to be, and again, I apologize because I'm like right in the middle of this right now, but I really don't think that we have to be, some sort of Jesus Christ type. I will sacrifice myself for some human I've never met type of person. I think we can be completely selfish in our motivations as an American and still say, we got to stop this, right? Now, what the argument will be, if you kind of win all of the arguments leading up to that, the final argument will be, well, we're already here now. Can't do anything about it now. And it'll be too much chaos if we pull out. But that's always the argument for not making a change. And, I would just, one of the things that just kind of going back a little bit further, that clip at the beginning, he's talking about, we should be supporting these free people who are rising up against somebody, blah, blah, blah. It's always broad brush, like really generic terms of good and evil and a religious type of person that just wants to kill you for your freedom. You remember that? They hate us for our freedom, right? I mean, just as a really quick example of why that just doesn't make any sense at all. I think most people would be shocked to find out that we have been fighting on the side of Al Qaeda for let's see. How long has it been since Obama was in office? So for about 11 years, we've been fully on the side of bin Laden and al-Zawahiri's people, that entire organization, Al-Qaeda in Iraq. And I'm not going to go, again, go to Scott Horton. He does the entire thing in perfect detail. But, we fought against them in Iraq. They moved into Syria. But now, and moved into Syria, what does that mean? They went from Lebanon to Mount Juliet, right? But now they're fighting against this guy who's allied with Iran. They're fighting against Assad, right? So I guess, as long as they're fighting against Iran, an Iran ally, right? I guess they're our friends now. So for like 11 years, we've been supporting them, right? And then what just happened earlier? It was earlier this year or late last year, right? Assad got overthrown, and they took Damascus, and it was celebrated in the media as some sort of popular uprising. And finally, the rebels from Return of the Jedi have taken down Darth Vader, right?
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. These are, as Scott Horton put it, these are the head chopper Bin Ladenites, right? This is the group that we are supporting. So these are the people that we are, because this guy who is talking, I mean, it sounds like he's saying we should be against anybody who has this type of, we're for ISIS now. That's what we're for, because that's what ISIS was. It was Al Qaeda in Iraq, in Syria, that moved back across the border into what it was, Eastern Syria and Western Iraq, into Western Iraq. So it's just not true that we are out there fighting for freedom and they hate us because of our freedom. And again, I could go down the list of, I couldn't, because I don't have it in my brain, but you can find this. And this will be the last thing I'll say. Horton makes a great point that, during the Bush administration, and I knew a little bit about this, but I really got hip to this during the Obama administration, when the FBI kind of shifted Biden administration, FBI shifted to, they said they were shifting to focusing on homegrown right-wing terrorists. That's what they were focusing on, right? And so then we started seeing these things that the FBI was doing, which were complete entrapment missions, where they would, this is the situation with the governor of Michigan and the supposed, kidnapping plot.
Yeah,
right.
Remember that? Yep.
And when you look into it, it turns out it was something like 6 of the 12 guys in the group. I'm sure I got that number wrong, but it was overwhelming majority of the guys were all FBI informants, right? This type of thing was happening under W. Bush, and I did know about this a little bit, where the FBI comes to some poor, a lot of times mentally disabled Americans of Middle Eastern descent, and tells them, hey, aren't you mad at the government, and don't you want to go, set off a bomb somewhere? Give them materials and then arrest them, right? This type of thing happened over and over and over again. But Horton makes the point, when they would do that, when the FBI agents would approach him, did they ever, and they're on the record saying this, they never went to him and said, hey, don't you want to blow up a government building because you hate our freedom?
Right.
No, they would say, don't you want to blow up a government building because of something that, some attack that happened, that the U.S. did, or that Israel did, or whatever one of their allies did in Gaza or what? It was always because of some act that we had done, right? That's what they used to entrap these guys. They didn't do it because they didn't. If they hated our freedom so much, it seems like that would be an easy way to get them to jump on board. But they never came at them with that kind of stuff. They came at them with the real things that were happening. So that's okay. Now I'm done.
No, that's good. Yeah, it makes me think about something else I've been thinking about, is the idea of the narratives that we create, right?
Yeah.
So, in listening to that just clip of the debate between the two persons at the beginning of the episode, they're having the debate is actually a non-issue. They've set up a narrative, and then they're debating a narrative, but the narrative actually isn't what I would call an accurate description of the situation.
I completely agree.
Okay.
But you got to ask, who does it benefit to have everyone talking about stuff that doesn't matter?
Actually, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking about, because the one guy, so the first guy sets up this whole thing about, but we have to be out there fighting the evil empires and stuff like that. And the other guy says, well, who gets to determine who the evil empires are? I'm like, well, that's not even why you just took the bait.
Yeah.
You've entered into this whole, hey, by the way, did you look over here?
Right.
That's kind of what's going on.
Right.
Is don't look at what's really happening. We're going to set this up, and this is the narrative that we're going to want you to believe, and this is the narrative you're going to live into. And the fact of the matter is we live into these narratives, right?
Yeah.
And to the point where I think we actually then create truth to those narratives.
How so?
Okay. So if we say, go back to your example of the FBI setting up a person who maybe is Middle Eastern descent and has some mental issues, right?
Yeah.
Some disabilities, whatever. And they go, aren't you really mad about how the United States is supporting Israel?
Yeah.
Okay. And we know that you're from Kuwait, but don't you fully support Palestinians as your brothers and sisters?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, all of a sudden he's like, yeah. Now, if that becomes the narrative that we keep telling, eventually, people start taking sides in what at one point was maybe just a made up story.
Oh yeah.
And now all of a sudden we're actually fighting something that was never meant to it was just a sideshow.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it actually does become the thing. All right.
Yeah.
So that then brings me back to our conversation last week.
Yeah.
One of the issues that we talked about was this idea of narratives and who gets to tell the stories. And of course, the easy thing is the victor tells the stories, right? But how am I trying to connect this? What do you do? Is it just easier to just ignore and continue to live? Like, okay, wouldn't it just be easier for me to set down this book that I'm halfway through?
Yeah.
And just ignore it. And just continue to live by the narrative I've told myself. Right? This is just the way the world is. It's always going to be this way. Everything's going to be great. I'm always going to be able to get an iPhone for relatively inexpensive. I know we complain about how expensive it is, but really, it's pretty inexpensive because of how much people are getting paid over, but whatever. And I can continue to feel disgusted in myself for taking advantage of that, but still taking advantage of it. It's much easier for me to just sort of live in that narrative than to allow another narrative or another possible story to begin to influence the way I think and I live. And that was one of the things that I tried to talk about with Mark last week, was this idea that I hear what you're saying. And it's tragic and it's very convincing, but why would the United States government want to hear a different story than the one that we've been telling ourselves for 250 whatever years now? So anyway, he's got his work cut out for him.
Well, and also and maybe we can transition to talking about that too. I mean,
I would like to hear your thoughts a little bit about that, because it was one of those deals where you were in California, I was sitting here in Nashville, and he was in Washington D.C., and we didn't really get a chance to hear or what each other were thinking about that. And so I know it's not really. I don't want to get into and he's not here to talk about it too. But I would like to hear some of your thoughts, maybe connected to what we're talking about today.
And I mentioned that to you that I didn't really enjoy it, and a lot of that was because it wasn't really, like you said, it wasn't really a conversation. I tried to get into a couple of things that I thought were interesting at different points, but yeah, I'd also said, like, when we were talking about what we were going to talk about today, I was like, I think there's something there that I do want to bring up, but I don't want to go down too far down the road of just being like, well, I didn't like when he said this, and I don't agree with him on this, and that was wrong, and whatever, because he's not here, and that's not fair.
Right.
And I should have brought it up at the time if I was going to. But I do think that some of the stuff that to relate it to what you were talking about just now, I do think that some of the issues that he's talking about are not getting at the actual heart of the matter, and become a different narrative that we then argue about. I think. Well, again, I don't want to get too far down that road, but I wanted to ask you and get your opinion on this. This podcast mission, if you will, is to have the way I see it, is to have an example of how you can have conversations with somebody that you disagree with, on paper, and still be friends.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we do that.
The good thing is we understand the mission the same way, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, that is good. That is good. That helps.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I think that we do that a lot on here. We try to see if we can find some disagreement, and then we banter a little bit, and we, try to find the common ground. I have a kind of a temperament that when I'm talking to somebody, and maybe this is not unique to me, it probably isn't not unique. I'm
I
not
love
some
the
sort
word
of flower or anything, but I had there's an aspect of my temperament where they, if I'm talking to somebody, especially if I'm talking to somebody I don't know well, but even if I'm talking to somebody who I do know well, and this happens with Krista sometimes, she points it out. She'll be like, "Oh, I can tell you disagree with me because you got real quiet." And just are going, "Oh yeah, yeah."
I told you I picked up on that.
Yeah, when I said I didn't really enjoy that conversation, you texted back and were like, "Yeah, I could tell."
I knew it. Yeah.
And I think that my face is neutral, and it clearly is not.
Well, but it makes me feel good that I know you well enough to know, I can kind of sense what's going on right now inside of Lucas.
Yeah. And so what I end up doing, and I'm going to try to say this in a way that does not sound like virtuous for me, because I don't think it is. I just start getting really quiet. If I hear somebody saying something and I'm like, I just completely, you're going down. Okay, I can see what's happening. Okay, then I'll start getting quiet, and a lot of it has to do with, if I'm gonna intellectualize it, it has to do with me thinking, well, there's no point in having a conversation with this person. They're never going to change their mind. They're not open to anything. I think the emotional side, which is probably more poignant, is I am afraid of a lot of things. And, I'm afraid of probably getting into some sort of argument with somebody in which I get flustered and then sound stupid. I don't want to sound stupid.
Sure.
Ever. But so, and there's other emotional things I'm sure that are happening as well. But what I wanted to ask you is, in light of what we're trying to do here, what do you do when I'm kind of a blowhard? I'm sure I say things around you that you're like, yeah, I don't agree with that, but you do a really good job of like continuing to engage. And in your life, you engage with a lot of different people who are saying a lot of different things. So in those situations, I mean, like, what would you say is how do you deal with that?
Yeah. In
a way that would continue to keep common ground,
So one is, and we'll use last week as an example for me.
Okay.
Because Mark Charles obviously knows a whole lot more about the history of the relationship. I mean, I know enough. I don't even know if that was the right way of putting it, for me to be able to have an opinion.
Sure.
Right. But he knows way more.
Yeah.
About what's going on. But I wasn't interested in learning the history.
Yeah.
Of the relationship between the Native American population and the United States government. It's interesting to me, and so I can be engaged and learn about that.
But that wasn't why you want to have the conversation.
No, I wanted to have the conversation because I wanted to hear more about how do you try to bring people to the table when someone, obviously, in my mind, there's no reason for them to come to the table. Like how do you bring the United States government to a table with Native Americans who legitimately, I would say, have a beef? I think so. I think they have a legitimate beef, but if I have nothing to gain, again, if I'm in a situation where I have nothing to gain by exposing myself to that, and only things to lose, and I'm in a position of power, right? He talked about the difference between power and legitimacy.
Sure.
It would take a lot, I think, to convince me to come to a table.
Yeah.
All right. That being said, how do I continue to engage with people? One is I think I'm genuinely a curious person. Right. I also often feel that I am probably the least informed about whatever topic we're talking about, unless it's theology. But like our conversation today, right? I know enough to be able to sit and have a conversation with you and understand and references you're making. The financial stuff I get confused on, but I want to learn about it. So I can continue to listen and continue to learn. I also, for me, one of the things is if I'm hearing somebody say things that I disagree with, I also know that I could always be wrong. And I think this goes back to the conversation that we had with Peter Rollins a while back. And that I've had this conversation actually now with him a couple times through emails. But I think the thing that holds relationship, communion, he would say communion, not community, in the bonus episode. For me, the thing is the uncertainty. And so I can have a conversation with somebody who I completely would disagree with, or even the topic might make me uncomfortable, but I can listen for things that I'm interested in and I want to learn about. And not feel like I even have to contribute much to the conversation. So like I was having a conversation earlier this week with a new friend of mine. Her name's Sue. And her husband grew up his family as part of an intentional community. And I had no idea what intentional community was. And as she talked about it, I had some opinions about intentional community. I think I shared a little bit of that before we started recording today with you about, I don't see how intentional communities can continue to stand beyond the first generation today in this world that we live in, because they're not necessary. Check this out, if deglobalization does happen, I can see where intentional communities become more important because being able to tap into specific skill sets. But I was able to sit and talk with her for almost 2 hours because I was curious. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question or not. But for me, uncertainty, humility, and inquisitive desire to learn are the things for me.
Jordan Peterson has I just looked it up so I could get the phrasing exactly right.
By the way, when I pointed out that he was Canadian, I do think it's relative. That's a reference to Sunday's conversation we were having in the group.
That is relevant that he's...
I think it's relevant that he's Canadian. When I listen to him talk, especially when he talks about... Anyway, go ahead.
It is relevant, sure.
I think it is. Anyway, go ahead.
He's got in his first 12 Rules for Life book, his 9th rule, I just looked it up so I could get the phrasing exactly right. It says, the rule is, assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't. And that sounds like what you're talking about. Just start from the assumption that they might know something, right, that you don't know.
Well, and I would even say for myself, I don't even assume it. It's just almost a given.
I mean, you're very humble about that. And
do you want to know where I'm not?
when it comes to theology.
Yeah. This is just a side note, because tonight I'm going to be on the panel at Conversation Coalition. And I am less this is a growth area for myself. All right. I have a lot harder time engaging with a fundamentalist when it comes to Christianity.
Sure.
Than almost any other group of people. And so I would be willing to bet that you would see a lot of the similar responses that you have. You were describing with yourself.
Yeah.
Like getting quieter, when I'm around fundamentalists, that's what you see.
Yeah.
I'm not. And to be honest with you,
because it's like
internally, I'm silently judging too.
It's like, where do I even start?
Yeah, I'm not even sure where our and
also everything feels like a landmine.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing too. I think for common ground to take place, everyone has to have a little bit of those three things. There has to be some humility. There has to be a willingness to admit that you don't know everything. And there has to be, to some extent, some inquisitiveness.
Okay.
Rule number 9.
Okay.
Right?
I am with you that I think that's what should exist. Here's the thing that I want to be challenged with is, I don't want to just retreat into, well, they didn't have those things,
right? So
then I don't have to,
right? Which is what I do which is full disclosure, which is what I will do and it depends on the situation, right? Like if I'm with a group of fundamentalists, doesn't mean that I can't have a good conversation with them,
of course.
But if they want to discuss theology with me, that's when all of a sudden I go, whoop,
yeah,
right. But if we're going to talk about football, baseball, politics, whatever, I can still have a relationship with them, right? I can still be a friendship with them. But if they want to debate theology with me, that's when you're going to get a lot of the, okay, sure.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, it's like,
and I will use those. Well, they don't have those three things. How can I talk to them? Right. I'll use that as my defense, which is kind of what you were getting ready to talk about.
Which is what I do. I think with most things. Because I have an enormous ego, and it's not. I'm not saying that in a positive way. I am saying that is a big thorn, right? That I am trying to thank the God that I don't believe in for having, so that I can remain humble. I need to keep that in mind. My ego. Listen, it's not pretty. It's not good. And it is something I need to work on. And I want to even when you were just talking right then, I really want to launch into some stuff that is going to, I think, make me look really smart. I'm still battling it right now as I'm talking. I'm like,
go ahead.
I was just about to go.
You got 8
just
minutes.
like, I'm not going to, listen, this is the point of this.
Okay.
So there's a part of me that doesn't want to do that, right? I'm serious about this thing.
But what if there's something that I could learn from it?
Stop it. You're trying. No. Stop.
No, I'm being serious.
There's nothing you could learn from what I wanted to say.
So you get to determine that?
Jeez, man. This is hard. Okay. No, oh God. How can I say this without sounding egotistical?
Just say it. I get to determine whether or not you're egotistical. You don't.
This is what I was thinking is, I imagine if somebody wants to throw down on, some sort of exegetical, theological debate, and they, for instance, don't even know who Tillich is. They don't even know the name. I imagine it's similar to if someone wants to tell me something about the origins of the Ukrainian war that's happening right now, and they don't even know who Victoria Nuland is, right?
Sure.
Much less could tell you anything about the Maidan Revolution or anything like that, right? And so then that happened. And so then I'm like, well, number one, I'm not going to talk about it. And number two, I don't need to listen to you, But this is what I'm saying. I'm serious about this thing. There's a part of me that's serious about this, right? That I want to see if I can continue to have common ground, and have that connection still somehow.
Even in that situation.
So how do I do it if I'm sensing from the other person that the other person isn't wanting to do that? Because that's the real challenge.
Right.
If everyone wants to do that, where's the challenge?
So here's the thing.
That's like
Right.
what good is it to be nice to your friend?
So maybe the thing that you can learn isn't actually the topic being discussed. Maybe there's other things to learn, and I'm talking to myself right now, right? So let's say again, there's someone that wants to engage me in theological debate, exegetical, whatever illical you want to talk about, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to that, and they're trying to convince me. This is a true story. Trying to convince me that the story in Genesis is a literal 6 days.
Yeah.
24-hour periods, right? And they start in, and I realize really quickly that they have not even an elementary understanding of the Hebrew.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Which has happened.
Sure.
So I can either at that point be like, well, this person's a dumbass, which I have done. Full disclosure, as soon as somebody has started and I realize that they think that
Yes, this is the thing.
I back out ugly. Okay, but they don't. They miss it. Maybe they don't have some of the access to some of the same information that I do. But I can still learn this. Why did they think that way? Why is that important to them?
Yeah.
Right. And so then I can shift gears with that. I can start thinking to myself, well, why is it so important for this person to insist and to have built up, like they spent time building an argument for why it was 6 days.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And having and having what they believe is an informed opinion about that. Why was that so important to them?
Yeah.
Right. And by the way, just to finish that example, for that person, that if they couldn't reconcile that was a 6-day creation story, they couldn't believe in Jesus.
Well,
like it connected for them.
And I'll bet if there is a line that you couldn't see that exists in their psyche, that if they couldn't connect that, they lost some connection with their grandmother.
Oh, absolutely.
Or their, whatever.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And so I would say in a situation like somebody wants to debate with you about Ukraine, right? And the war in Ukraine, a thing that might actually be helpful, and maybe this is helpful for everyone that's listening. This is great because we are talking about living on common ground. How do you do it? What we've talked about is a different understanding about the narrative of the origin of the United States of America's government. We've talked about the narrative that we tell with regards to the United States military involvement, right? We're talking about the narratives that people tell themselves with regards to the origins of the world. And we've also now we're connecting back to the military, I think goes into this idea of globalization, which we're using the example of the war in Ukraine, which by the way, I think has sped up the deglobalization and is an example of what's happening as a result of deglobalization. So anyway, the question would be, why does this person want to enter a debate with me? What about their position? Why do they have that position? What was their thought process in developing that position? Because a lot of times, what I have found is the reason that maybe they don't know Tillich, or they don't know is because they actually don't want to scratch deeper. They wanted their position.
Sure.
So why?
I like that because that keeps the responsibility on me. It makes it so that I don't get to go, well, I don't have responsibility to find common ground with that person because that person's stupid or that person doesn't have the right, temperament, or that person's not approaching it right or whatever. It doesn't give me a trap door. That's the important. And it is hard because I sense that in myself, that thing that you were just saying, that you want to keep the narrative. This is hard for me, this anti-war stuff, because I do not have the type of personality or identity or temperament that I want to find myself on the same side of the table as AOC. Are you kidding me? You know, some blue hair Antifa member says things that I'm supposed to agree with now.
Right.
Like, that is hard. That's really hard for me.
Sure.
I don't want that, you know? And so I have to look at that and be like, I can sense within me this initial resistance to these positions or this evidence or this argument or whatever, because it threatens an identity that I sense saved my life. Right? For me, I sense that this identity of, you know, starched white collar shirt, living the normal life, upper middle class. My grandparents weren't upper middle class, but I mean, like, this image that I had of them, which was in contrast to the image of addict mom, white trash, you know, like, you know, whatever, all of that. I have this internal sense that saved my life and put me on a path that made it so I could live a normal life. And so, and in my mind, in that paradigm, well, the anti-war protesters, those are all just people who don't have jobs. They don't care. And they also are against 90% of the things that I'm for. So I can't agree with them.
Right.
Right. And so that's really hard. And I'm not trying to give myself credit. I'm just saying, like, I can sympathize then with someone who is a young earth Christian from the perspective of what you're talking about, right? Like, well, Lucas, come on, think about all the dominoes that would fall, right? So it is reasonable to expect that they would need to hold on to that. And that does, you know, that puts the onus back on me, as long as I can keep from being like, well, they're so simple. And I need to protect them. You know, that's just ego too.
And it's hard. You know, just the conversation that I had with Sue, very interesting person, lovely person.
Yeah.
She is she's an environmental activist.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because and I was fully engaged and really learning a lot about stuff. And then at the end, I was embarrassed to go get into my Toyota Tundra and drive away as she was getting in her Prius. So, all right. What's our common ground on our topic today? Do we end with, hey, you can always be inquisitive. You just maybe have to shift away from the actual topic being discussed.
I like that as a comment. And even, you know, whether we want to say it really, you know, falls into the category of our common ground or not. I really like that as a lesson that I've taken from this, which is like, I still have a responsibility. You know, I'm in this conversation with Mr. Charles. I've got a responsibility to find some connection. It's not his responsibility to reach out. It's always my responsibility. And that is a way, what you said, like you can shift what you're trying to learn. And still find the connection and find the common ground that way. I think that's really good.
Awesome. All right. And as far as military stuff, you still think we should withdraw?
I think yes.
I'm good with dial back.
Man, I think withdraw. I am, well, that is a very long conversation.
How about this?
Now we're starting again.
How about this? Dial back, or if nothing else, at least be honest about why you're there.
We start being honest about, if our government could be honest, I don't know if we'd have a civilization anymore. I'll tell you what.
Well, the end of globalization is going to be the end of civilization, according to the book.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah, it sounds like he wants globalization to continue.
Yeah, well, he's got me nervous. All right, thanks.
Thank you for listening to Living on Common Ground. Please follow wherever you listen to your podcasts and share it with your friends. You can also find a link to our social in the description. The more people we have living on common ground, the better the world will be.